My name is Clara. I'm 30 years old. For a long time, my life followed that silent script no one really questions. But everyone senses there's something wrong. I'd wake up, rush through breakfast, face traffic, work 8, 9, sometimes 10 hours a day, come home exhausted, turn on the TV and fall asleep with a hollow feeling slowly consuming me. I had a good job. Stability, benefits, health insurance. Those words were constantly used to remind me how lucky I was. But something inside me was screaming, silently. A restlessness that had no name, but carried weight. A heavy pressure in my chest that became harder to ignore with each passing morning. It wasn't sadness, and it wasn't depression either. It felt like I was just surviving, without really knowing why. The days felt like poorly made copies of each other. I smiled on the outside, but inside I kept wondering, is this all there is? Is life just this soulless rush, this automatic repetition of tasks, this constant effort to look fine while everything inside is silent? My relationships were shallow, occasional friends, quick conversations. No one knew what was truly going on inside me, not even I did. I always had this feeling that life held something more, something deeper, more real, but I never found the time, courage, or direction to search for it. Until one day, everything changed. It was a regular morning like any other. The alarm went off at 6:30. I got up with a headache, dragged myself to the kitchen to make coffee. I remember looking out the window and seeing the grey sky. It was autumn, and the leaves had already begun to fall. I sat on the couch with a warm cup in my hands, and suddenly my heart started racing. A sharp, intense pain took over my chest. I tried to breathe, but the air wouldn't come. My vision blurred and the world started spinning. My body was trembling. I felt a strange heat rising up my spine. And then, absolute silence. Everything stopped. Time, sound, even fear. Vanished, it. Felt like I was floating, weightless. As if I had been pulled out of myself. A presence without a body, hovering between what was and what would never be the same again. In the instant everything fell silent, I realised something extraordinary was happening. There was no more pain, no weight in my chest, no sounds from the world around me. Just a deep, profound sense of peace. So profound it felt impossible to be real. As if I had been wrapped in an invisible cloak, light, serene, and completely loving. I could see my body. It was there, slumped on the couch, the coffee cup spilled on the floor, a thin trail of steam still rising. My eyes were open, but I knew no one was inside anymore. The Clara who had known that body, that routine, that pain, was no longer the same. I watched the scene without panic, without fear. It was like watching a movie whose ending I somehow already knew. A gentle detachment began to settle in me, a quiet certainty that I was not that body. I was something beyond it, something that had always been there, but was only now awakening from a deep sleep. Suddenly, a soft force began pulling me upward. It wasn't physical. It felt like I was being drawn by something greater, something that recognized me, that was calling me. I didn't resist. I simply allowed myself to go. I floated through a space that wasn't exactly dark, but neither was it light. It was a full emptiness, a living silence, a space between worlds where time seemed to have fallen asleep. There, I began to lose the sense of what I was. My identity, my fears, my memories, all started to dissolve like mist under the sun. And yet, at the same time, I began to remember something I never knew I knew. I remembered that I had been there before, that this space between worlds was familiar, that death wasn't an end, but a return home. It was like taking off a tight piece of clothing you've worn for far too long, and when it slips off, you finally breathe fully for the first time. In the midst of that silence, I heard something, not with my ears, but with my soul. It was a soundless song, a vibration so beautiful it made me weep, even without tears. It felt as if the universe itself was embracing me, as if it was saying, "You've arrived. Everything is okay now." A light appeared in the distance. Not an ordinary light. It was alive. It pulsed like a vast, beating heart. And with it came presences, beings of light, tall, majestic, yet simple and humble at the same time. They had no defined shape, but I could feel them. And I felt as though they knew me deeply, far before I was ever born. One of them came closer. Without words, it transmitted a truth that pierced through my soul. You are not alone. You never were. In that moment, everything inside me broke open. I cried in a way I never had before, not out of sorrow, but relief. As if centuries of loneliness had melted away in a single instant. That being radiated pure love, not human, love conditional and fragile, but absolute love, eternal, demanding nothing. A love that knew every part of me, even the parts I tried to hide, and still embraced me fully. "You died," it said, "but there is nothing to fear. You are safe. You are awake." In that moment, I understood everything I had feared. In life, loss, rejection, failure, death, was nothing but veils. Illusions born from a mind disconnected from its origin. And there, in that realm between worlds, those veils began to fall, one by one. I was free. But little did I know. The true journey was only just beginning. Guided by that luminous presence, I was led beyond that silent space where my body lay, distant in time. The light around me expanded gently, wrapping everything in a golden glow that seemed to pulse with a living intelligence. Each particle of light was like a musical note, and together they formed a symphony I didn't hear with my ears, but with my entire being. As we moved forward, a kind of portal opened before me. It wasn't a physical doorway, but a vibrational shift, like passing through the surface of water and emerging into another ocean, subtler, more real. As soon as I crossed, I was embraced by a new reality. It was a world indescribable. Everything there seemed made of light, but a light that breathed, that felt, that spoke to my essence. There were green fields that weren't just vegetation, but consciousness in living form. Towering trees with crystalline trunks glowed softly, whispering ancient secrets. Flowers opened and closed their petals to the rhythm of melodies floating in the air, as if the environment itself were a loving, living being. The sky was vast, but there was no sun. The light came from everywhere, and from within me as well. I felt no separation between myself and that world. I was part of it, and it was part of me. I walked, or rather floated, along a path made of shimmering particles. With every step, forgotten memories began to surface. Memories of other lives, of moments before birth, of conversations with beings of light, of a greater plan, carefully designed before I ever came to Earth. And then I understood something profound, physical. Life was only a small part of a much greater story. I felt a presence approaching. Unlike the first being, this one felt more familiar, as if it was someone I had deeply loved but forgotten. As it drew near, I was overwhelmed by a feeling of home. It looked at me, or rather, it saw through me with a gaze that had no eyes, and spoke without moving its lips. "You are returning to remember." I understood. This journey wasn't an escape from life. It was a calling to recover what the material world had made me forget. The essence of who I am, the reason I chose to be born, and above all, the illusion of separation. We continued walking, together, and soon we reached a higher place, a kind of luminous hill from which the spiritual realm spread out in all directions. Floating cities, rivers of liquid light, beings that moved like conscious constellations. It was a beauty no poet, artist, or musician could ever capture. There, everything made sense. There was no suffering, no fear, no hurry. The questions that had always haunted me in physical life. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What happens? After death began to dissolve like morning mist. The answers didn't come in words, they came as direct understanding. A knowing that needed no explanation. At that point, there was no doubt. Death was only a transition, a return, a rebirth. And as I looked back, I saw how Earth was simply a school, a field of experience for courageous souls. Because it takes courage to forget who you are, to dive into the density of the physical world, and to try, even without memories, to remember again. That's when a structure of light appeared in the distance. It looked like a temple, not built by human hands, but shaped by pure intention, by elevated consciousness. I knew it was the next step. Something awaited me inside. Something that would change everything, forever. And my heart, or whatever I was in that moment, was ready. The temple before me seemed to pulse with a living consciousness. Its structure had no angles, only soft curves and spirals that moved as if they were breathing. It was made of translucent light, in tones shifting between gold, white and deep, blue. With each step toward its entrance, a feeling of reverence rose within me, as if I were about to reunite with something sacred, ancient, eternal. As I crossed the threshold, I was overcome by an immense presence. It felt like entering a living being, a field of love and wisdom that completely enveloped me. The walls shimmered with symbols that moved silently, like stories being told through the light itself. I didn't understand them with my mind, but I could feel that each one spoke directly to my spirit. At the center of the temple was a circular space, a kind of amphitheater made of crystalline energy, and in its midst stood 7 presences, 7 beings of light. They had no defined forms, but radiated archetypal shapes. One seemed to contain the wisdom of all time. Another vibrated with a maternal energy so deep it made my heart weep with longing. One appeared made of stars, another glowed like silence itself. And together they formed something my soul recognized. The Council. I didn't fully know what this council was, but I felt I had been there before. That, before I was born, before I forgot, I had stood before them, choosing, planning, promising. And now, having returned, they awaited me with the patience of millennia. One of them stepped forward. Its presence was both masculine and feminine, young and ancient, as if all dualities of existence found harmony within it. It didn't speak. It transmitted. Clara, you have returned to the center from which all things are born. This is the space between worlds, where the soul remembers who it is, where the masks fall and truth is revealed. A flood of emotions overwhelmed me. It was as if all the suffering I had carried in life, the fears, the insecurities, the sense of being lost, was being fully seen and simultaneously forgiven, as if there was no need to blame myself for forgetting. Because forgetting is part of the game of life, another being stepped closer. Its presence was firm, vibrant. It projected images before me, scenes from my life, moments I once thought insignificant, now glowing with a different light. A smile I gave to a stranger, a silent gesture of forgiveness, a night when, even exhausted, I chose to listen to someone who needed to be heard. You were never off the path. Even when you felt lost, you were exactly where you needed to be. Every step was seen, every choice was honoured. Because Earth is a veil, Clara, and those who incarnate there are heroes. Tears streamed. No, they radiated from my consciousness in waves of light. For the first time, I felt the weight of my own compassion for myself. For the first time, I truly embraced myself. I welcomed myself. I forgave myself. The third being stepped forward. Its presence was as soft as a breeze and as powerful as a silent thunder. You came to remember, to bring remembrance to those who have forgotten as well. Earth cries out for light, Clara, and you agreed to be one of its beacons, not to teach, but to remember, together. For every human being carries the spark, but few have the courage to ignite it. The words carried no sound, they came as truth. and that truth vibrated in every cell of my essence. Then I understood. My purpose was not to live a perfect life. It was to awaken, and to help others awaken too. The entire temple began to vibrate at a higher frequency. It was as if everything was celebrating that moment of remembrance, and in that field of pure light, I was flooded with visions. I saw the earth, surrounded by a grey mist, pain, fear, illusion, but within it, small lights began to flicker, like candles in a dark cave. And each light touched other lights, and slowly, the darkness began to retreat. I saw humanity as I had never seen it before, not as a mistake, but as a sacred experience. I saw the hidden beauty within the chaos. I saw souls reuniting, forgiving, liberating themselves. I saw myself, returning. The council surrounded me in golden light as if preparing me. I knew what was coming next. There was still much to be revealed, but in that moment, something inside me had been sealed. A pact, a commitment to truth, to love, to remembrance. And when I stepped out of the temple, I was no longer the same. After leaving the temple, I was guided to a space that had no form, no colour, no direction. It felt like floating within the very heart of the universe. There was no inside or outside. Everything simply was. They told me this was the level of essence, where souls access wisdom beyond words, where time does not exist and truth does not need to be explained, only remembered. The first revelation came like a plunge. Everything I had lived through, every pain, every joy, every silence, every loss. It was all part of a greater design, a plan woven with love, by myself, before I was born. Every person who crossed my path, every choice, every fall, none of it was random. Physical. Life is a carefully crafted experience for the soul's awakening, said a voice within me. Suffering is not punishment. It is an invitation. Pain is not a penalty. It is a messenger. And fear is the guardian of the gateway to love. These words were not heard. They were absorbed. I was each one of them. And as I felt them, I began to see, not with eyes, but with consciousness. I saw myself in other lifetimes, as a woman, as a man, as a child, as an elder. I saw lives where I was a healer, a warrior, a priestess, a mother, a wanderer, a hermit. I saw lives where I was lost, where I caused pain, where I was betrayed, loved, forgotten, revered, and I understood, everything is experience, the soul does not judge. It only learns. The second revelation came like an explosion of light. Time is not linear. In the physical realm, we believe in past, present, and future. But there, everything happened simultaneously. My childhood, my death, my return, all coexisted in layered realities. Time is an illusion of the mind. The soul lives in the eternal now, and every choice you make echoes in all directions, like ripples in an infinite lake. And that's when I realized, every thought is a creation, every emotion, a seed, every act of love, a star lit in eternity. And if everything is creation, then I was, and have always been, a co-creator, not a victim, not a spectator, but the author of my existence. The third revelation dismantled me from within. I saw the ego, not as an enemy, but as a fragile armour, a structure I built to survive the density of the physical world. I saw how it gets scared, how it tries to control, how it fears disappearing, and for the first time I felt compassion for it. You are not here to destroy the ego. You are here to integrate it, to teach it that it doesn't need to fight, that it can trust, that there is something greater guiding everything. This truth healed me, because throughout life I had often blamed myself for feeling afraid, for not getting things right. But now I understood. Every fear was a cry for love, a plea from a part of me that only wanted to be embraced. And then came the final revelation. the one that changed everything. Separation is the greatest illusion of existence. We are not separate from God, nor from one another, nor from nature. We are different expressions of the same consciousness, like drops of the same ocean believing. They are alone when in truth they never left the sea. I saw this so clearly I wept. I wept for humanity, for all those who believe they are alone, for all who have forgotten they are loved, that they are light, that they are part of the whole. And then, I was bathed in an energy I cannot describe. It moved through me like an avalanche of tenderness. It was like being touched by 1,000 mothers at once, like being held within the womb of the universe. There was no pain, no doubt, only a love so immense that my entire being dissolved into it. I was the all. I was love. I was the infinite. Not as a concept, not as a belief, but as absolute truth. I remained there, immersed in that state, without knowing how long, because time didn't exist. Only that vibration existed, the remembrance of what I had always been, of what we all are, until, slowly, a new awareness began to emerge, a subtle calling, a memory of Earth. The council returned to my presence. With gentleness, they said, "You have received what you needed. Now it is time to return. Carry the remembrance with you. Carry the vibration. Because the world does not need more knowledge. It needs presence. Awake souls. Hearts that remember." And before I could reply, a light began to surround me once, again. A gentle, spiraling vortex that pulled me with love toward the return, and I understood. The journey didn't end there. It was only beginning, once again. I didn't want to return, not out of fear nor doubt, but because that state of being, of pure connection, was so vast, so sweet, so complete, that the idea of separating from it, even for a moment, felt like a step backward. Like leaving, the lap of eternity to dive once more into the fragility of flesh. And yet, there was a calling I couldn't ignore. Earth was calling me. Not with words, but with a silent plea. A cry from souls still asleep. From hearts that were searching, even if they didn't know it. From lost inner children, waiting for someone to light the way. And then I understood. I needed to return. Not because something forced me, but because my love for that world, for its chaos, was greater than my desire to stay in the comfort of the light. The vortex began to spin faster, and I felt my energetic field being compressed, as if being squeezed into a single drop. My consciousness, once expanded like the universe, began to retract, to remember limits, pain, the body. It was like plunging into icy water after resting in the warm womb of a star. I felt the weight of density before I even opened my eyes. Every cell in my body pulsed in resistance. The air, once light, was now heavy. The light turned dim. The sound muffled. It felt as if I were trying to breathe inside a world made of wet cotton. My eyes didn't open right away, but I heard voices, felt hands, devices. Someone said, "She's back. My God, she's back!" Others cried, some shouted, and I simply felt. The pain in my chest, the cold in my limbs, the sensation of a massive weight pressing on my body, as if gravity had forgotten me for a moment, and now remembered, forcefully. I tried to move. My fingers. One, then another. Slowly, like someone returning from a place where time does not exist. Minutes later, or perhaps hours, I don't know, I opened my eyes. The hospital's white light blinded me. Everything was rough, harsh, loud, and at the same time, I knew I needed to be there. I saw familiar faces, people crying with joy, doctors in disbelief. They said I had died for several minutes, that my heart had stopped, that there was no explanation for my return, but I knew. Deep in my soul, I knew exactly why I had come back. In the hours that followed, I remained in silence. Not from inability, but out of reverence. as if my spirit was still recalibrating its presence in the flesh, as if every cell was trying to remember what it meant to be human. But something had changed. The pain still existed. The doubt still hovered. But I was no longer the same. There was something new within me. A different gaze, a lightness, a steadiness, a deep love for everything, even for what once wounded me. In the days that followed, I began to write. Every fragment of the experience I could remember, I put on paper. Every vision, every truth, every feeling, not out of a need to prove anything. But because I knew these words were not mine alone, they belong to all who have forgotten who they are, to all who feel alone, lost, directionless. And then, I understood. My mission was to remind the world of what the world forgot, not with dogmas, not with absolute certainties, but with presence, with truth, with vulnerability, with the courage to say, I saw, I died, I came back, and everything, absolutely everything, is worth it. Death. A necessary illusion. The ego. A confused but important companion. Suffering. A disguised teacher. Life. A sacred gift, even when it feels like a punishment. Today, every sunset moves me. Every hug feels eternal. Every tear I see in someone's eyes touches me like a divine whisper. Because now I know, we are all home, even when we think we are lost. And me? I continue, with simple steps, but with a full heart, and a purpose greater than words, because I didn't come back just to live. I came back to awaken other hearts. I came back to remind what we all already know is but forgot. I came back to light the way. Today, as I walk through the streets, I see people with different eyes. I see exhausted mothers carrying children in their arms, and I realise how they carry the weight of the world. I see the elderly walking slowly with their canes and toilfoyen. I feel the weight and beauty of the stories held in their eyes. I see young people in a hurry, faces glued to screens, hearts starving for something they haven't yet learned to name. And each one of them is a universe. Each person carries a secret pain, a forgotten hope, a sleeping dream. And all of them, without exception, are searching for the same thing. To remember who they truly are. That's why I came back. Not to be special. Not to prove anything. But to remind people of what they already know, but forgot in the noise of life. I came back to say, you are not lost. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are becoming. Everything you've lived, everything, has purpose. Every tear was understood in the spiritual realm as a prayer. Every silence a conversation with the divine. Every dark night of the soul, a portal to your true light. You don't need to reach perfection, you only need to return to yourself, to return to the stillness that lives within your chest, to the place where there is no fear, no judgment, no mask, the place where your soul dances, free, before it ever had a name, a body, a story. That's where I was, and from there, I returned, to remind you that there is something beyond this pain, beyond this chaos, beyond the routine, the bills, the anxiety, the labels. There is a reality where you are infinite, where you are loved with such overwhelming intensity that if you felt it now, you would fall to your knees in gratitude. That place is not outside of you, it's within. It always was. My mission now is simple, to light the way in dark rooms, in tired souls, in hearts that have given up, to light it with words, with silence, with presence. Maybe you'll never have an experience like mine. Maybe you'll never cross the threshold of death to understand the value of life. But you can, right here, right now, close your eyes and listen. Listen to what your soul whispers when the world grows quiet. She is there, waiting for you to remember, to trust, to surrender. You are more than you believe, more than your name, more than your past, more than your mistakes. You are consciousness. You are flame. You are part of something so vast, so loving, so eternal, that no pain can ever erase it. And when a heart remembers this, it becomes a lighthouse, and a lighthouse doesn't chase. The darkness, it simply shines, and in shining it reveals the way, so shine. With your pain, your doubt, your mess. Shine even while trembling, even without knowing the next step, because light does not wait for perfection, it simply is, just like you. And if one day your soul forgets, close your eyes, breathe. And remember, I saw, I went, I came back, and I'm here to remind you who you are.